Lieutenant Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the Earth Alliance Starship Resolute as it drifted through the dense asteroid field of the Vega system. The mission was clear. Establish contact with the Charon, an enigmatic alien species whose technology could change the tide of humanity's interstellar expansion. The Charon were infamous for their beauty, intellect, and secrecy, but the warning he'd received from a mysterious old trader on Vega Station still echoed in his mind. Stay away from the Charon females, especially the ones in heat. At the time, Marcus had laughed it off. Now, he wasn't so sure. The Charon envoy was aboard the Resolute, and the presence of one particular Charon, Liara, was unsettling. Her silver skin shimmered under the artificial lights, and her luminous violet eyes seemed to pierce his very soul. She was the diplomatic liaison, a position that demanded formality and restraint, but there was an edge to her every glance and every word. The crew was on edge too. Liara wasn't alone. Her brother, Kalen, a Charon warrior, accompanied her, towering over the humans with his midnight black armor and razor-sharp tail. Though Kalen was protective of Liara, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more primal in his warnings to stay distant. Despite Kalen's sharp gaze, Marcus found himself drawn to Liara in ways he couldn't explain. She spoke in riddles, her voice a melody that stirred something deep in his chest. Her every movement was both graceful and predatory. One evening, as Marcus reviewed charts in his quarters, a soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The door slid open, and Liara stood there, her presence magnetic. "You've been avoiding me, Lieutenant Kane," she purred, stepping inside uninvited. "Why?" "I'm not sure what you mean," Marcus said, though his pulse quickened. Liara tilted her head, her smile enigmatic. "Humans are curious creatures. You burn so brightly. But you fear what you don't understand. Don't you want to know why we accepted your invitation?" Before Marcus could respond, the ship's alarms blared, shattering the moment. The voice of the ship's AI echoed through the corridors. Unidentified vessel approaching. "All hands to stations." An icy knot of dread formed in Marcus's stomach as he sprinted to the bridge, Liara following close behind. Kalen was already there, glaring at the main view screen where a sleek, alien ship hovered just beyond the asteroid field. Its design was organic, almost alive, with bioluminescent patterns rippling along its hull like waves of light. "That's one of ours," Kalen growled, his voice low and dangerous. His tail twitched with agitation. "They shouldn't be here." "What do you mean, one of yours?" Marcus demanded. Liara's expression darkened. "Not all of my people agree with our mission to negotiate with humans. There are factions who believe your kind is too dangerous to be trusted." "Great," Marcus muttered, rubbing his temples. "So this is a coup? They're here to sabotage the talks?" "They're here to take me back," Liara said quietly. Her tone was calm, but her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "They won't leave without a fight." The alien ship fired a warning shot, a pulse of energy that rippled through the Resolute's shields like water. The bridge lights flickered, and Marcus heard the faint hum of the ship's systems struggling to compensate. "Shields are holding," the tactical officer reported, though her voice was tight with anxiety. Marcus's jaw tightened. He turned to Liara. "Why you? What's so special about you that they'd risk open conflict just to drag you back?" Liara hesitated, glancing at Kalen, who gave her a sharp look that seemed to warn her against saying too much. But she met Marcus's gaze, her violet eyes burning with an intensity that made his breath catch. "I'm different," she said finally. "And they fear what I could become." Before Marcus could press her for more details, the alien ship hailed them. A guttural voice, distorted and alien, filled the bridge. "Return Liara to us. Now." Kalen stepped forward, his posture rigid, his tone dripping with disdain. "You dishonor yourselves by interfering with this mission. Stand down." The voice responded with a growl that made Marcus's skin crawl. "Your mission is irrelevant. The human alliance is a mistake, and Liara's presence here is a threat to our people. Surrender her, or be destroyed." Marcus exchanged a glance with his crew. The tension in the room was palpable. The Resolute wasn't equipped for prolonged combat, especially not against a vessel of this caliber. Negotiation seemed like the only viable option, but Liara's expression told him that surrender wasn't on the table. "Open a channel," Marcus ordered. When the connection was established, he stepped forward, projecting as much authority as he could muster. "This is Lieutenant Marcus Kane of the Earth Alliance Starship Resolute. We are here on a peaceful diplomatic mission. There's no need for hostilities." The alien voice chuckled, a dark, humorless sound. "You misunderstand, human. Your mission is irrelevant. Our only concern is Liara." Marcus clenched his fist. "And what happens to my ship if I refuse?" "Then you die with her." The channel cut off abruptly, and the alien ship fired again. This time, the impact was harder, shaking the bridge and sending sparks flying from an overloaded console. The shields wouldn't hold much longer. Kalen snarled, his claws flexing. "We can't win this fight. You have to let us go. My sister and I will board their ship and deal with them ourselves." "That's suicide," Marcus said. "If you go over there, you'll be outnumbered and outgunned." Kalen's eyes narrowed. "We can handle ourselves, but you can't handle them. Your ship is already falling apart." Marcus hesitated, his mind racing. Every instinct told him to keep the Sharon siblings on board, to find another way to resolve this without sacrificing anyone. But the reality of the situation was stark. They couldn't outfight the alien ship, and they couldn't outrun it. Finally, he made his decision. "I'm coming with you." Kalen snorted. "You'd only get in the way." "Maybe," Marcus said, stepping closer. "But this is my ship, my crew, and my mission. I'm not sending you into danger while I sit back and do nothing." Kalen stared at him for a long moment, then gave a curt nod. "Fine. But don't expect me to save you." "Noted." Liara stepped forward, her gaze softening as she looked at Marcus. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Marcus said firmly. "Now let's end this." The boarding mission was about to begin, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into something far bigger and far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. The Sharon vessel loomed like a predator, its sleek, bioluminescent hull casting an eerie glow against the cold backdrop of space. The Resolute shuddered again as another volley of energy pulses struck its shields, the shimmering protective barrier flickering with each hit. The bridge was alive with tension, officers shouting reports over the blaring alarms. Marcus Kane, Liara, and Kalen stood in the ship's docking bay, preparing for the boarding mission. Kalen was already suited up in his Sharon combat armor, the black, segmented material seeming to shift and breathe with him. His sharp tail lashed behind him, its tip glinting like a blade. Liara, in contrast, wore no armor, only a flowing silver robe that looked more ceremonial than practical. Despite her delicate appearance, Marcus could feel the power radiating from her. "You're not armed?" Marcus asked, eyeing her attire. Liara's lips curved into a faint smile. "I don't need weapons, Lieutenant Kane." Kalen snorted as he adjusted the controls on his gauntlet. "You'll see soon enough. Just try not to get in the way, human." Marcus ignored the jab and focused on his own preparations. He double-checked his plasma rifle and body armor, suppressing the nagging doubt clawing at his mind. He'd fought in skirmishes before, but this was different. The Sharon ship was an unknown, and its crew operated on motives he didn't fully understand. The docking bay doors groaned open, revealing the narrow magnetic bridge extending toward the enemy ship. Beyond it lay darkness punctuated by the faint, pulsing glow of the Sharon vessel's hull. Marcus took a steadying breath and stepped onto the bridge, his boots magnetically locking with each step. Kalen moved ahead with the fluid grace of a predator, while Liara followed in silence, her presence a steady anchor amidst the chaos. When they reached the enemy ship, Kalen placed his hand on the shimmering surface of the airlock. The material seemed to recognize him, rippling like water as it retracted to allow them entry. The interior of the ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Organic, living walls pulsed softly, and faint streams of light flowed through translucent conduits like veins carrying blood. The air was warmer and thicker, tinged with a scent Marcus couldn't place, something floral, but with an edge of metal. "This way," Kalen said, his voice low. He led them through a series of winding corridors, his tail swaying in time with his step. Liara remained close to Marcus, her eyes scanning their surroundings with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "Why aren't they stopping us?" Marcus whispered, his grip tightening on his rifle. "They're watching," Liara said softly. "Waiting to see what we'll do." They rounded a corner and entered a large chamber that seemed to pulse with life. Dozens of Sharon soldiers stood in formation, their armor gleaming like black glass. At the far end of the room, a figure stepped forward, a tall, imposing Sharon male with a crest of bioluminescent spines that flared like a crown. "Liara," the figure said, his voice deep and resonant. "You've caused quite a stir," Kalen growled, stepping in front of his sister. "Terran, I should have known you'd be leading this." Terran's violet eyes flicked to Kalen, then to Marcus, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. "And you've brought a human with you. How quaint." Marcus bristled but held his tongue. Terran's gaze shifted back to Liara, softening slightly. "You know why we're here, sister. Come home. This alliance with humans is a mistake." Liara's expression hardened. "You think isolating ourselves will save us? Humanity is stronger than you give them credit for." "They're dangerous," Terran snapped. "Primitive, impulsive, destructive. They'll turn on us the moment it suits them. You know this." "I know they have potential," Liara shot back. "And I believe in their ability to change. We can guide them, Terran. Help them grow." Terran's lips curled into a sneer. "Naive as ever. You've always let your emotions cloud your judgment." Kalen's tail lashed. "She's right and you're too blind to see it. We're stronger together." "Enough," Terran said, his voice cutting through the tension. He pointed at Marcus. "This human doesn't belong here. He's a liability. Hand him over, and we'll let you leave." Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding. "If you want me, come and get me." The soldiers shifted, their weapons humming to life. Kalen snarled, his claws extending as he took a defensive stance. Liara raised her hands, and a faint glow surrounded her fingers, the air around her shimmering with heat. "Marcus, stay behind me," Liara said, her voice firm. "No chance," Marcus replied. He raised his rifle, his finger hovering over the trigger. The room was a powder keg, and it was about to ignite. The first shot came from one of the Sharon soldiers, but Kalen was faster. He lunged, his claws raking through the air as he took down the nearest attacker. Marcus fired his rifle, the plasma bolt striking another soldier square in the chest. The room erupted into chaos. Liara moved like a dancer, her glowing hands weaving patterns in the air. Bolts of energy arced from her palms, striking soldiers with pinpoint accuracy. Marcus couldn't help but stare in awe. She wasn't just fighting, she was commanding the battlefield, her power overwhelming. But it wasn't enough. More soldiers poured into the room, their weapons blazing. Marcus ducked behind a pillar, firing in controlled bursts. Kalen fought like a beast, his tail and claws tearing through enemies, but even he was beginning to falter. "We can't hold them off forever," Marcus shouted. Liara glanced at him, her expression grim. "We don't need to. Follow me." She raised her hands, and the air around her shimmered with heat. A wave of energy burst from her, sending soldiers flying and creating a temporary gap in the enemy lines. She grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him toward an exit, Kalen close behind. They ran through the corridors, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. Liara led them to a smaller chamber filled with glowing, crystalline structures. She placed her hands on one of the crystals, and it began to hum. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked, his chest heaving. "Buying us time," Liara said. "This ship is alive. I can disrupt its systems, but it'll take a moment." Kalen stood guard at the entrance, his claws dripping with blood. "Hurry, Liara. They're coming." The walls around them began to pulse erratically, the lights flickering. The ship groaned, as though in pain, and Marcus felt the floor shift beneath his feet. "It's done," Liara said, stepping back from the crystal. "But we need to move. Now." As they fled deeper into the ship, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading toward something even more dangerous. Liara's power was incredible, but it was clear she was holding something back, something she didn't want him to see. And whatever it was, he knew it was only a matter of time before it came to the surface. The corridors of the Sharon vessel trembled as Liara's disruption cascaded through its systems. Pulses of light flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Marcus, Liara, and Kalen moved swiftly, navigating the labyrinthine passageways as the ship groaned in protest. "Where are we even going?" Marcus panted, gripping his rifle tightly. "To the core," Liara replied, her tone clipped. "If we can reach it, we might have a chance to disable the ship entirely." "And what happens if we don't?" Marcus asked, his voice laced with frustration. Kalen shot him a sharp look. "Then we die, human. Keep moving." The sound of pursuing soldiers echoed through the corridors, growing louder with each passing moment. Marcus could feel the sweat on his brow as adrenaline coursed through his veins. He wasn't sure how much longer they could keep this up. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber unlike anything Marcus had seen before. The core of the ship pulsed with life, a massive crystalline structure suspended in the center of the room by glowing tendrils of energy. The walls were covered in organic conduits that throbbed with light, feeding power into the core. Liara moved toward the core with purpose, her hands glowing faintly as she reached out toward the tendrils. "I can overload the core, but it's going to draw a lot of attention. We'll need to hold them off until I'm done." Kalen nodded, positioning himself near the entrance. "I'll handle the front line. Marcus, cover her." Marcus took up a position beside Liara, his rifle trained on the doorway. "How long will this take?" "Not long," Liara said, her voice steady. "But the energy feedback will be intense. Stay close to me when it starts." Marcus's mind raced with questions, but there was no time to ask them. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, and moments later, the first wave of Sharon soldiers burst into the room. Kalen was a whirlwind of destruction, his claws and tail a blur as he tore through the attackers. Marcus fired in controlled bursts, taking down soldiers who slipped past Kalen's defense. The air was thick with the smell of plasma and scorched metal. Meanwhile, Liara stood before the core, her hands pressed against its surface. Her violet eyes glowed brightly as she channeled her energy into the crystalline structure. The tendrils of light surrounding the core began to writhe and pulse, responding to her touch. A sudden blast of energy knocked Marcus off his feet, and he scrambled to his knees just in time to see a new figure enter the chamber, Terran. His bioluminescent spines flared with light, and his armor gleamed like polished obsidian. "You can't win, Liara," Terran said, his voice resonating with power. "Even if you destroy this ship, others will come. You're risking everything for a species that doesn't deserve your loyalty." Liara didn't look up, her focus remaining on the core. "You don't understand, Terran. This isn't just about humanity. It's about our future." "Our future?" Terran scoffed. "Our future doesn't lie with them. They're reckless, destructive. And so were we once," Liara interrupted her. Terran's words hung in the air, his towering figure radiating menace as the room trembled from the energy emanating from the core. Liara didn't falter, her hands glowing brighter as she forced the ship's systems into overload. Marcus scrambled to his feet, positioning himself between her and Terran, his rifle aimed directly at the Sharon leader. "You'll have to go through me," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the storm raging around him. Terran's violet eyes narrowed. "Brave words, human, but you're outmatched?" He raised a clawed hand, and the air around him shimmered with power. Kalen stepped forward, his tail lashing. "You're not touching her, Terran. If you want to fight, you've got one." The two Sharon clashed, their movements a blur of speed and precision. Kalen's claws sparked against Terran's armor as the older warrior retaliated with devastating force. The chamber shook as their battle raged, the organic walls rippling in response to the energy unleashed. Marcus turned his focus to the soldiers pouring into the room. Plasma bolts whizzed past him as he fired with precision, taking down one enemy after another. Despite the chaos, his mind remained locked on Liara, who stood at the core, her glow intensifying with each passing second. "How much longer?" Marcus shouted, his voice nearly drowned out by the sounds of combat. "Almost there," Liara replied, her voice strained. Beads of sweat glistened on her silver skin, and the tendrils of energy around the core began to twist and spark violently. "Just hold them off a little longer." Kalen let out a roar as Terran drove him back with a brutal strike, his claws leaving deep gouges in Kalen's armor. Terran's eyes burned with fury as he turned his attention to Liara. "You're making a mistake, sister. You'll doom us all." "I'm saving us," Liara shouted, her voice carrying a note of desperation. "You're too blind to see it, Terran. This isn't just about humanity, it's about breaking the cycle of fear and isolation. We can't keep hiding from the universe." Terran hesitated, his posture faltering for the briefest moment. But then his expression hardened. "You've been corrupted by them. If you won't stop, I will." Before he could strike, Marcus stepped between them, his rifle trained on Terran's chest. "You're not laying a finger on her," Terran sneered. "You think you can protect her, human? You're nothing." Marcus fired, the plasma bolt striking Terran's armor and staggering him. The Sharon leader snarled and lashed out, his claws slicing through the air. Marcus dodged, narrowly avoiding the attack, but he knew he couldn't hold Terran off for long. Kalen, bloodied but unbroken, surged forward with a furious roar. He tackled Terran, the two warriors crashing to the ground in a tangle of limbs. "Finish it, Liara!" Kalen shouted. "Do it now." The core's glow became blinding, filling the room with searing light. Liara's voice rose in a strange, harmonic chant, her power resonating with the core. The ship groaned, its organic walls convulsing as the overload reached its peak. "Marcus!" Liara called, her voice urgent. "Come to me, now." Marcus didn't hesitate. He sprinted to her side, and as soon as he reached her, Liara wrapped her arms around him. A shield of shimmering energy erupted around them, encasing them in a protective bubble. Kalen, still grappling with Terran, roared in defiance as the core erupted in a cataclysmic surge of energy. The blast tore through the ship, obliterating everything in its path. The walls, the soldiers, the conduits, everything was consumed in a brilliant cascade of light. Marcus felt a strange, weightless sensation as the shield carried him and Liara away from the destruction, a wave of warmth enveloping them. When Marcus opened his eyes, he was lying on the floor of the Resolute's docking bay. The room was eerily silent, the hum of the ship's systems a welcome reminder that he was alive. He sat up, his head spinning, and saw Liara kneeling beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "You're safe," she said softly, her violet eyes filled with relief. Marcus looked around. "Kalen? What about?" A groan interrupted him, and he turned to see Kalen slumped against a bulkhead, his armor battered but intact. The Sharon warrior pushed himself to his feet, his movements slow but steady. "I'm not dead yet," he muttered, his voice gruff. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "We made it?" Liara nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. "The ship is gone. Terran and his forces won't be able to threaten us anymore." "But what about the Sharon?" Marcus asked. "Won't they come after you for this?" Liara's expression grew somber. "Some might, but others will see the truth. What we've done here, it will send a message. Change is never easy, but it's necessary." Kalen stepped forward, his gaze sharp. "You risked everything for these humans, Liara. I hope it was worth it." "It was," she said firmly. Her eyes met Marcus's, and for a moment, the world seemed to fade away. "They're worth it." Marcus felt his chest tighten, a strange mixture of gratitude and affection swelling within him. He reached out, taking her hand in his. We couldn't have done this without you. Liara's smile widened, and for the first time since they'd met, Marcus saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Perhaps, she said softly. But this is just the beginning. As the Resolute left the ruins of the Charon ship behind, Marcus stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Liara joined him, her presence a comforting warmth by his side. What happens now? He asked, his voice quiet. Liara tilted her head, her gaze thoughtful. We keep moving forward. Together. Marcus glanced at her, his heart pounding as her words sank in. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt ready to face it, so long as she was by his side. And as the stars stretched out before them, endless and full of promise, Marcus couldn't help but smile.